Last week we took the 2021 Toyota Supra for a rip around the canyons of Angeles Crest. On this episode, we're diving a little bit deeper into what this car is like to drive and live with on a daily basis. And we're also going to be comparing it to some of the other competition that you could find in this price range. One of the things that I saw a lot of other journalists complaining about with the Supra is the difficulty getting in and out due to the strange roofline. Personally, I don't have any issue getting in and out of this car. That part doesn't bother me. However, I do have issues with some of the other things related to accessibility and comfort. First, there isn't much headroom in this car. I'm 6'1" and barely fit. Here's the headroom shot. I don't even think I would be able to fit in here with a helmet. As you can see, there's this much room, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. It's surprisingly tight in here, and being that I'm only 6'1", I know a lot of people are even taller than I am. It's just strange to me. Second, the side visibility is pretty bad. The rear 3/4 makes it difficult to see next to you. Although, fortunately this car has blind spot monitors, which helps a ton. The last issue I have is by far my biggest complaint, and that's the seats. I want to show you guys what I'm talking about with this seat. Can you see behind my neck? There's just like gap here, and the headrest, it points forward, but you can't adjust the headrest. So I don't know if it's just my shape and size, like my height, I'm 6'1". I don't know if it's my torso length, but the way mine is, it hits the very peak of this front part of the headrest, and it just like pushes me forward. So I'm kind of just like always hunched down in the seat. It's actually very, very uncomfortable, and it's really just boils down to the shape. Can you see it there? I'll show you on this side. It's a very odd shape, and it kind of promotes you more to like lean back, and I just don't find driving in this car very comfortable over any period of time. I understand they do this partially for safety, but I don't have this problem in virtually any other car. So something is truly off here for someone my size. So what I will say is you guys should sit in one and see if it fits your body type, because it doesn't fit mine. Moving away from the interior, another test I like to do is to see how much front clearance the car has for everyday driving. It's hard to tell in the video, but this is a pretty steep driveway and the car just barely passes here. That said, it does a lot better than my Cayman GT4, which scrapes pretty much everywhere I go. So overall, for a sports car, I say the car is pretty good here. My final livability complaint is the wind buffeting. I talked about this in the review last week, so if you want to hear more about it, go watch that video. But ultimately, you cannot drive this car with the windows down at anything over 40 miles an hour without a horrible wind resonance in the cabin. In order to find out what the Supra is like to live with, we might as well take it on an everyday task. I'm gonna go get groceries, and on the way, we're gonna talk about what this thing is like to drive in a daily driver setting. And then when we get there, I'll show you some of the storage options and kind of how this car behaves as a daily driver. So let's take it for a spin. First thing is the engine fires up because I have start stop in this car. Start stop is to obviously save gas when you come to a stop or a stoplight or stop sign. You can defeat it with this button, which meaning that it will not stop the engine when you come to a stop, but it doesn't persist through key cycles. And what I mean by that is that the second I turn the car off and turn it back on, it will default to starting and stopping the engine again. Now, most BMWs are good about that persisting through the key cycles and remembering the setting that you had. This one, I don't know if it's because it's half a Toyota product and they decided that, or it's an emissions thing, but it's sort of annoying to me because I find start stop very annoying and I always want it to be off. Anyways, let's talk about what the Supra is like to actually drive, and does it have that special quality that you need in a fun and special car? And I think the answer to that is sort of. The way the Supra stands out in my book and in my mind is by its looks. It's not particularly exciting to drive in a regular fashion. The really good cars, every single time you get in them, it's fun, it's an experience. This doesn't really do that. When you're driving regular, it just feels like any other car. It could be a Camry. It's just the way it drives. But the way it looks, you know, when you approach it in a parking lot, you see it, you're like, wow, that's like a good looking car. You're happy to get in it. Driving down the street, a lot of people, you know, it turns heads. People are interested in it because it's a unique looking car, and I think it's a good looking car. So the way it drives is forgettable around town. You have to really be pushing this car to get any sort of experience out of it. You know, it just doesn't have much character outside of when you're going fast. Now, when it comes to a daily driving perspective, some people might see that as a pro. If you're driving this car all the time and you're commuting in it, sometimes maybe you do want to turn off your brain. And in that regard, this car is really good because the suspension is very compliant. You have a adaptive suspension, so when you want it to be firmer and you want to have fun, you can do that. And then you can put it in normal or comfort mode when you're just driving around town. And it doesn't beat you up like some cars such as the M2, which I will name right there. That's a car that has a fixed suspension, is definitely more track focused, and is a lot less enjoyable on the street, frankly. But this car is good. Once again, the automatic transmission I mentioned before, this is a torque converted automatic transmission, meaning that it's not dual clutch. And some of the dual clutches can be a little bit weird at lower speeds or in between gears. So this being a traditional automatic, it's great around town. It's great creeping in traffic or in parking lots or anything like that. So I think they've built a all-around really good daily driver here, but it does lack some of the fizz and excitement that I want out of a fun car, just doing normal things. Not a ton of space here. It's really narrow from side to side, fairly deep, but these haunches back here really cut into the space, so not a whole ton of room. Well, it's time to sum up the Toyota Supra and how it really falls amongst the other competition. See, the $50,000 to $60,000 range in sports cars is pretty crowded. You have Caymans, Cayman S's, not so much the GT4s, these are a little too expensive. You also have M2s, you have M240i's in the BMW space. You also have things such as the GT350 or even potentially a Corvette. There's a lot of cars in this space. Now, how does it compare? Well, it's not as complete a car as any of the Porsches. The Porsches, I drove this car across the country, for God's sake, so of course the seats are comfortable, there's no wind buffeting. It doesn't suffer from any of those little, nuances that the Supra has. At the same time, this car, the Supra, is not quite as special as the GT350 to drive or the M2 to drive, or really, honestly, the Cayman S for that matter. So every time you get in it, it doesn't feel exactly like a special experience. Now, that said, this is on the more comfortable end, so you could daily drive it definitely better than a GT350. It's smaller. The GT350 has good suspension, but this is overall more comfortable, more refined. So it really just depends what you're looking for. You could daily drive this thing if you don't need a lot of space or to haul around a lot of people. And it has striking looks. Whether you think they're good looks or not is up to you, but striking looks, and it gets a lot of attention. So I think Toyota can make this car a little bit better and turn it into a great car, but it still has some fixes to be done. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Eat, Sleep, Drive TV on Instagram. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.